All right, let's jump into it. Where we at? It is just before metals open. It is 9:59 on Thursday, 5th of March. And look, I'll sort of start off with gold just because I've got it up on the chart here, and it's pretty much the place where I start most mornings. But yeah, look, gold played out fairly well yesterday, to be honest with that. As you can see structurally, it's kind of respecting the levels. It did get that little push pretty much off the open. It had a little gap up in that little close, and then, as I said yesterday, sort of that sort of 51.50, 51.40 zone here was really that kind of zone we were looking to get above. Broke through, found resistance on point, back test, did get the higher high, but this is the main thing that I was trying to sort of caution yesterday, and I was a little bit cautious on sort of holding too many positions through this, purely because I did feel that we were going to get this kind of move coming through at some stage. 4 hour probably sort of emphasizes it a little bit better, but as you can see, we've got that sort of like potential what could be now a justifiable back test, sort of third leg in this kind of sort of downward move. As you can see, we got move down, find support, we found resistance. This now could be justifiably a third leg through here. This leg obviously looks like it's trying to find support on a previous level that we got marked out, which is actually this big sort of breakout point, that 51.20 or so that everybody was looking at. It feels like ages ago on that, but it wasn't too long ago. Um, and obviously sort of found a little bit of support here. Coming into the end of the session, tightening up here a little bit. Obviously, this is just opening up now and getting a little bit of a push there, but I wouldn't say necessarily that you can confirm this whole back leg is done here. It's to me, it's a little bit in no man's land because it could be that this is the pullback here. If this were to be the scenario, then okay, fine. If this holds, this level through here holds 5100, then emphasis goes back on 5200 to produce something along this line. Retest here, and then that's your sort of are we going to break higher or are we going to find ourselves in more of a continued range? So structurally in that you sort of obviously sort of got to sort of confirm that this is the actual low of this pullback. Emphasis is on the back on 5200 here. Break through 52, well then we've got a high low, breakthrough, we've got a high high. We can look for a higher level of recovery, probably back up around that sort of 5300 or so. Like they're fairly large ranges. There'd be maybe a little bit of a sort of a speed hump here at the 61%, of course. So, 5230s and then up to maybe sort of like 5290s should we break through 5200. Rejection at 5200, then we're probably looking more for a bit of a range through here, and obviously emphasis then sort of comes back down on the bottom part of this range here. So structurally in that, we are potentially in this sort of like, okay, pullback high low. If 5100 fails, doesn't mean that the move is over. It just sort of means that most likely we're looking for a body fill down here, so back down to 5080. We did have that little zone that we had through yesterday, so maybe that'd be more of your sort of confirmation through here. So underneath 5074. So as you can see, it's a little bit sort of could go this way, could go that way. And one thing I've sort of really sort of noticed, particularly, I mean, with most markets, but particularly with metals at the moment, because as you can see, war's happening, we're going up, hot and white war's happening. We actually got absolutely demolished to the downside here. I do feel that this will reside to the top side, but it is very choppy at the moment, and it could really sort of fall into the one of sort of two camps with it all. Like as I said, this could be the back test here, it could be coming back down here. I don't think we're going to get major breaks down here, and I don't think necessarily going to get major breaks up here. I do think if we do recover, which I do think we'll sort of probably recover to the top side here, I do think it'll be quite choppy. As in, if we get up over here, I'd be looking for shorts again to sort of come back down like this. I think you got to honor how much this thing got smashed into. I do believe a little bit of this was kind of like to just absolutely clean out the book of everybody that was like, oh, war started, and every time you turn on the TV, they're bombing another thing. I do believe that's to sort of wipe out a lot of people doing that. And we did come back to that China lunar holiday level, which, as I covered before in that, I had as a potential plan breaking from this triangle. Obviously, the war broke out, so we sort of went to the top side first. But I did say the other week that this is a level in which I do believe these kind of things do revisit. Yes, it came in absolute spectacular fashion, but the point is that sort of like, while you've got all these people that sort of like, they came back from the lunar holiday, wherever it was about, I think it was over here, they smashed into. There's a lot of just call it free money kind of thing, whereas like open positions and that gets cleared up, and then now bang back to business. Let's just see how we go with gold here. All right. So yeah, that's a bit of an overview of sort of what I'm sort of feeling for gold. If we get onto the lower time frame, look, it looks like a couple of nice little wicks here. We've got this is on the 1 hour. It's obviously breaking up here early. We saw it yesterday sort of fluff around a little bit, but then sort of grind to the top side. As I said, I really kind of want to see what happens up over here. This is where my focus is at 5190 to 5200. I think that's going to be sort of make or break kind of thing for the moment. And then, as I said, potentially get a little bit of a range happening through here, or potentially sort of go up higher. And that, to me, it kind of feels like this is putting in that high low now. But of course, you need the three parts to it all. You need to sort of break through this little leg here to sort of then show that, okay, we're going up to the next level. All right, moving on and have a look at silver. So yeah, silver, pretty much same sort of story. So I was looking between, what was it, 86 and 88 yesterday. Came up to just underneath 87. So pretty much exactly what we were kind of looking for, as you can see, with this move here. So you guys sort of think, again, same with it, is this it for the bounce to sort of come back? This kind of support, I told us yesterday, I put this in, I was a bit questioning whether I sort of believed it or not. The fact that you've chopped up above it, chopped below, to me, I'm a bit meh on that one, so I'm going to reduce that back down. That to me, it doesn't seem like the market's really reacting to it. And that's the thing with the technical analysis and that, so people that don't do it, they're sort of like, oh, it's a hocus pocus or whatever. But the thing is, it is telling a story. And, not everything is like, oh, this is the line it's reacting off and that'll be forever. No, you're just trying to sort of determine what are they sort of reacting to, and then sort of working off that. And, we could see that quite clearly, we had support, 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 support here. Well, it's not a big surprise that it came in and turned out to be resistance. You know what I mean? So, yeah, there was a reason for this to sort of be coming back here. I mean, as I said, same with gold. Structurally, we're trying to look for that sort of higher low, which looks like it's trying to sort of form through here. So again, the same sort of thing. The emphasis is on the bounce highs from yesterday. If this can hold as a little pullback here, it's trying to put in a little bit of a zone. So we can bang a little bit of a zone in here. So a little purple line here. It's trying to put in a little bit of a zone through here. So look, bit choppy just because it's on the 4 hour. Realistically, that's kind of like where you want to hold. So you could say, hey, look, it'd come back down to sort of 81.80s and still have a higher low from this sort of point here. I think if you break through this level here, because it was a little sort of stepping stone kind of thing moving up, should you break through 81.80, you're going back down to the body fill test at 79. 79.60 or so. I don't think that's the base. That's not my base case. I don't think that's the thing. I think potentially, we will see this thing drift up and at least test through here. But this will, again, same with gold. Bounce high will be your sort of one to sort of really tell, are we sort of getting a higher low and then a higher high? So that'll be sort of, okay, we're going a bit high here. But again, same sort of thing. It's in no man's land. You could see, okay, no, it's going to come back down, put in a higher low, but at a lower level, or is that it and it's going to sort of move up here? Again, sort of, even if this thing does break over here, the structure is still moving down to then come up to then come down. So I don't think, even if it does move back up, I still think it's going to be a sort of a tough ask and a tough gig sort of getting back up. And maybe we look up to 91 10, 91.14, that body fill over there. You've got 81, oh, so 88.20 over here as well. Like, there's levels over here which are going to be very tough, and they're going to be plausible sell levels. So even if we do sort of break through this level here, it's not like, okay, we're going back up to the top, but we look for the next sort of objectives and the next sort of levels that we can sort of target, and then expect that the sells are definitely going to come down. If we do sort of break through, this high over here, so if we go through sort of 86.70, a close above here, I would be targeting the body fill up here at 90, 90, just call it 90 even, but it's like 90.10 or something like that. Just quickly as well, this is obviously going up there. If we chuck a little fib on here, we can have a look through this move as well. See if we can get anything that sort of lines up with it all. As I say, it's just under the 50% sort of retracement sort of through here. Look, I think definitely this is your trigger area. Should we sort of break through here? Well, I think that's your kind of move. But again, this is the kind of move that I'd probably be looking for up to the 61%. Back over here, pretty much as that was. Screw that. Let's keep the chart a little bit cleaner. That's the kind of move that I'm looking for through here. So again, if we do get the break up higher, as I said, I do think that potentially up around this zone over here, you got the body fill, got the 61% of this drop down here. I think that'd probably be a bit a more sort of sustained sell down. So you know, I mean, look, this could fail. As I said, it's kind of no man's land, which is a bit of a crappy place to be for these sort of trades. And that it's not as it's like okay, we've got a very strong sell moving down here, but we're potentially putting in higher lows within that kind of structure, you know, and now you're trying to determine, like, is that it for the sell down? Is it that it for the, you know, the short term pullback kind of thing? I would tend to sort of think you probably have one more leg up and then maybe a move back down like this. So yeah, I'd probably be looking sort of just mainly sort of see if we can close above 86, get up to that 61%, that body fill area up around here, and then sort of look for more sort of sells to sort of come back down. This is definitely, look, even if it gets up over here, you're going to have a pretty good shot at shorting this thing here because there's obviously a bit of a sort of area tried a couple of times and really led to that, okay, nah, we're definitely going down now, sell, bang. So through here. So second effort through here, 1, 2, 3, like again, smaller sort of time frame, you know, yep, found resistance, resistance of previous support. Have we found support here? That's what we're sort of trying to question at the moment. Second effort to come through there. That's the move. And are we going to get range or are we going to get break? That's the question with this sort of thing at the moment. I am in the camp probably if we do get up here, we probably will break through. Second effort coming up through here. But as you can see, it was quite a strong support leading into this area. So the question is, obviously we tested on the way back down, is one test enough? And that's why I sort of like, you know, it leaves it a little bit in this area of sort of like, is that it? Is it, you know, is it going to start to just range through here? I would say, and I have been sort of saying, look to the dollar. Look at what the dollar's going to do. I mean, stronger dollar and that would probably push the metals down. But as I said, things aren't as clear cut as a one-to-one at the moment. So, you know, we saw the dollar have a bit of a down day yesterday. Metals obviously recovered a little bit. The dollar didn't really recover into the end of the session, yet metals did pull back. So this is that sort of 90-10 kind of split that I'm talking about. But my base sort of case with this is probably upside to then break through here. So, I mean, look, you're still looking from 83 up to 89, which is a $6 move. Should it sort of grind its way back up over here? But should we get up over here, I'll definitely be looking for sells again. All right, move on to the dollar, as we got the dollar sort of, as I said, kind of flagging through this area here. So yesterday I covered this sort of thing. You sort of would have thought, excuse me, that this thing would have just structurally had a pullback and then sort of gone through. Obviously didn't get that. Now we're starting to see a bit of a pullback here, and this is kind of what I'm looking for at the moment. The idea that this is really just a slow little grind backwards before we just go bang to the top side here. Which, as I said, you can't tell with the metals, because metals I do think potentially have some short-term upside, which could mean that we still have a little bit of downside on the dollar here. But I do think the dollar's due for a test of 100 over here. It does, to me, kind of look a little bit like it's just a pennant sort of flagging through here. You know, this sort of back test through here is kind of a cautious grind back down, opposed to sells that we've seen previously, which are just like waterfalls. Just look at that's when they're selling the dollar. You know what I mean? This is more just sort of a bit of a flag, bit of a cautious, oh, We go here. No, we go a little bit lower. We go a little bit lower. And again, you don't know that this is necessarily the end of the pullback. This is on the 1 hour here. But, it's starting to get down into that oversold, starting to sort of flatten out through here, maybe a little spike down and then a move back up. But pretty much what I'm kind of looking for here is a move up to test that 100, which is a big sort of zone, 99.80 to, 120, that kind of area, but call it 100, split the difference. But I think that's going to be the big sort of test there. I mean, depending on how you draw your flag, some people give it a longer pole like this, so you could have your sort of two objectives. But that kind of, to me, is probably the smaller one, the safer bet. That's kind of if you want to sort of be a little bit more gung-ho with it all. But I kind of feel like this move here belongs to this move here in terms of measured moves. This move here belongs to this move here. So I'd be more sort of put this one and this one in a smaller size. Actually, so what we'll do is we'll make it smaller and we'll sort of put it as dots because that's not the base case with it. The solid lines is the base case to sort of get up to sort of test this area because, as I said, look, this is going to be a strong area. So it's all very well to have your price target, measured move takes you here, and it could still get there, definitely, but it's not going to go straight through. It's going to come back like this and then go through like that if it does go through to that price target. That's the path that this thing would happen. So for me, you've got your first objective of this little sort of pullback through here. That's fine. Takes up into an area where we know sellers are going to be lurking. Sellers push that back down from there. That's fine. If we get a retest of these kind of levels and a second push, second effort, you can see the structure start to build here where we've got leg one, resistance, pull back, find support. Where would support come? Previous resistance, second effort, bang, pushing through. That's how it would get through to the top there. But I'm not a investor. I'm more of a sort of trader. And this pullback through here, if you're positioned wrong, can still sort of stop you out and sit you on a couple of things. So I look for the easier first objective target first, and then we can work on it from there. But that would be that sort of move to sort of break through there. And honestly, I do think that the dollar is going higher. So that's why I'm saying that sort of like, while we could get a bit of a push up in the metals, I think while the dollar's on the charge, unless the dollar sort of fails back down over here, I think the metals are going to at best be capped for a little while. But yeah, there is obviously that chance. We saw, like when the dollar got on the bid here, you saw what happened to metals. You know, they don't work one to one. I'll keep sort of saying that, but there is kind of like a certain amount of sort of capital and flow that could go into one or the other. And when one's getting absolutely dominated, the flows are generally sort of going to wind up in the other side of it all. Anyway, so that's kind of what we're looking for here. Look, short term, you probably kind of got to get above the swing highs here. So back above sort of 99.20, which is a bit of an ask in that from 98.80 at the moment. So I guess sort of like first things first, get out of this little flag pennant. Confirmation probably above 99.20. Price target up around 99.90, 100. Ballpark up around here. Should this thing sort of come back down, just to sort of consider both sides of it, I don't think it will. If it gets back down like 98.20s and that, you could say, yeah, okay, maybe it's going to do a bit of a back test of this 98 level. If it gets down here, you're definitely going to get a reaction, but it's looking pretty sick if this thing sort of goes up and then dribbles back down over here. So I'd be cautioning it a little bit then, should we sort of break down underneath there. So body fill down here, I want to see it hold 98.50 on the downside for any sort of like early back test. All right. Just while we are on the dollar as well, we had ADP last night, which didn't seem to really give us a reaction because from what I saw briefly, I think we actually sort of got stronger numbers out. Revised down from 11.22 down to 11, expecting 50, came in at 63. So it's a bit of a chop mix there. I think you kind of go off initially, like, the more weight is onto this number here, but obviously you need to factor in, hold on, wait, it was revised down, yada, yada. And then ISM services, it's the PMIs here. Big beat here on the services side. It's a big beat, but then again, slightly less here. So, a bit of a choppy with the data. but really didn't seem to sort of really react a great deal with metal. So with the dollar, as you can see, excuse me, it's still sort of dribbled to the downside. So to me, it's a little bit more sort of just, as I said, that structural setup opposed to, hey, here's the data, that's what's driving us all together. So this just feels like a little dribble back in that to sort of see where the stops are potentially, and then I still think we'll resolve to the top side here. Put on to Aussie now as well because this thing actually traded very well yesterday. So I was looking for the early dip to then sort of buy up here. It came actually a little bit lower than I sort of thought. If we get onto a lower time frame, you can see this little midway support area, which is kind of like, it's not even a main sort of level or anything, but it seems to be actually sort of playing its role a little bit here. Got down underneath it, and this is off the back of stronger GDP as well, which I found quite interesting because the dollar wasn't really sort of highly in demand. We got a lot stronger GDP, yet it sold down. And actually, as you can see, down to the 61% retracement of the bounce move. And this is kind of like, this is what I'm looking for with gold, in the sense of gold is kind of here at the moment. Well, it's about here kind of thing, like relative. As in, we had the big sell down, we had the bounce, that's fine. As you can see, high low put in down here. Emphasis goes back onto these highs over here. Came up, tested, 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 broke through. So now we've got higher low, we've got higher highs. Doesn't mean that the game's all, okay, now we're going out to the highs because now we're looking for sells at this level up here anyway. And this is the same sort of thing I'm looking for with gold. To see if we can establish and get a foothold in with this higher low. Emphasis on to the bounce highs, which was for gold around 5190, 5200. That's your first objective, that first target. Break through that. Look for the next sort of fib lines. I think it's 78 or something, or the next confluence with the resistance. And then we'll be looking for sells again there. So as I said, I think the dollar's about to sort of push up on that. Obviously, Aussie isn't part of the dollar, but we are sort of looking potentially for some sort of bigger wave to sort of come back down over here. I don't think that's it for Aussie. That was a big sell down, and now if you don't, this is the thing. If you don't bank on these big moves, well, you're sweating a little bit because you're giving it all back here, or you're stopped out because you followed your stops or whatever. You know what I mean? So anyway, point being is that we're back up at the 78. We're back up at a resistance level. I think certainly sort of underneath 70.60, that's going to open it up. Your first test's pretty quick down at 7.35. Underneath there, I don't think this little, I've said this a couple of times, I don't think this little one will hold it. And then you're kind of coming back down to these tests over here. So that's kind of the move that I'm looking for here. If this thing sort of breaks through and comes up here, okay, it could poke its nose above 71 again. If we do see some little sort of little quick sell off on the dollar, but as I said, my base case isn't for the dollar to fail back down. If the dollar does fail, okay, Aussie's up for it and come back up into these 71s. However, I think the pennant in the dollar is showing that the market is about to start buying the dollar, buying the US dollar again, which I think they're going to be selling Aussie on that. Aussie sort of, if you think about it, so like silver to gold is kind of like Aussie to the rest of the market. Like if they want to sort of buy it, they'll buy it very hard, but if they want to sell it, they'll sell it very hard as well. Of course, we got stronger GDP now. We got sort of the RBA sounding quite hawkish. I mean, we've got everything set up for the case of it being not too bad a sort of strength choice. And this is why they'll buy it a bit harder should they sell off the dollar. But at the same time, that's Aussie data, and that doesn't mean enough to hold it against the market wanting to buy US dollar. So if they want to buy US dollar, and we've got strong GDP, we've got strong job numbers, we've got high inflation, these kind of things saves it and keeps it in these kind of areas around the sort of 69, 70 kind of areas. But should we not have that, we would be down here, 67 cents. You know what I mean? Like if we had sort of like, inflation not an issue, we had weak numbers and we were looking more at cutting against a strong dollar, well, that's a double pronged sort of hit to the downside. But, you got the fact that the RBA is a bit stronger, more hawkish outlook, stronger data, that's kind of sort of saving Aussie a little bit here. So not really a fan of this line here. Look, I'll put that in. It's not that's not really something that I'm necessarily trading off. I think sort of more just a structural sort of sell back down over here. So anyway, onto it. Underneath the 70-60, I think we sort of start to see a bit of a drift back down here. Really sort of confirm it underneath 70-35. All right, so moving on, just having a quick look at sort of things, and I think this emphasizes the point. If we just flip back to metals real quickly, you can see it's just not really doing anything at the moment. Like it's kind of yeah, it's up to the top side trying to sell down. You can't tell with this one because it doesn't have the it doesn't show the little gaps. Okay. Anyway, whatever. Um, it's popped up a couple of bucks, but it's just kind of sitting there, trying to sell back down, so sitting there. It's not really doing too much in this. Excuse me, and I think this is pretty much what you can expect while it is in this no man's land kind of thing. So it doesn't really give us a nice sort of clear cut direction as to sort of where we're sort of heading with it all. You'd have to get down, obviously this is on the 15-minute here, onto the lower time frames to try and pick out some like little choppy kind of levels of it all. But I think sort of the fact that it's a very subdued open is a bit of a testament to that kind of stuff. Anyway, fire on with the yen, Aussie yen. So we did get that sort of high low here, but this is actually good because we're showing a lot of the different sort of recoveries of this structure, but they're all similar in the sense of we got the big sell down, we got the bounce to 61%, second effort down. This did the body fill, as you can see. So this is what I sort of talk about, that if you break through these little areas where you'd want it to hold for a higher low, this at this stage was looking like a higher low here, failed, where'd it go? It went down to the body fill. And this is why I think we could use a few of these charts and that sort of in conjunction with each other to sort of say, hey, look, if the pullback doesn't happen, so like with gold, it's trying to put in this little higher low section over here. Should that fail, look for the body fill. Doesn't mean the game's over and we're necessarily coming lower, lower, lower. As you can see, the recovery bounce came off that, but it's actually sort of finding resistance at that sort of same level here. That's still like, yes, it popped its head above for 2 seconds, but it's really just dancing around that point. And this is what I say that sort of like, it once you've got this structure forming, you go down, you found support, you found resistance, you come down, failed to break through, pretty much call it a double bottom. Emphasis goes back on bounce highs. This is where we're at now. So it's very plausible that this starts to do something to this effect, and we start to see a bit of a range forming through here if it doesn't pop to the top side. As I said, I'm looking for a downside move on Aussie. So I do think that this will come back down here. And this goes to show that if you don't break above, where does the emphasis go? Well, it goes back on to this level down here. We do have this sort of like midway point here. It did sort of hold a couple of times, danced around it a little bit. So like I've sort of said with these things, if we start to see a range form, this would be the kind of range that I'd be looking for. And that sort of 1050 would be the sort of 1050 would be the sort of midway point of that range. Hence, so if you do come down, this would be your first target to come through here. You get a reaction. If it breaks through that, we'll come down to the bottom of the range. Or you sort of come back up over here and you find your plays in the top part of the range. But this would be the general range, and with your ranges, you'll have a midway point. So if this thing breaks lower, my first emphasis, or my first sort of point of call that I'm looking at is sort of a 1050, 110.50 to see, is that going to hold? And then we could start to move back to 111. Is it going to sort of have a second effort to push through? If it does, then we're coming down to 110. But for now, I think this is kind of the area. Look, it could obviously still break. It is a bit of a bounce that's moving up like this, but as I said, I think sort of if we look at a couple of these other charts, I think that potentially, this thing may sort of, sort of come back down a little bit here, and my sort of focus is going to be on 110. But again, it's not a nice clear cut trade for this at the moment. But short-term downside is where I'd be looking for the yen. All right, and I think that's about it for us now. So we've got much data or anything coming out today. Uh, bit of household spending, sort of, a little bit of data for the Aussie, nothing really sort of market moving. Unemployment claims tonight, that's weekly. Seems to be about that sort of ballpark of just nothing too much. And then, of course, tomorrow night we got the NFP, which is looking. I covered this the other day. They said it looks like, oh wow, a bit of a sell off of that, but I think it's trying to sort of show 130 being a bit more anomaly, whatever. Not the standard because they've been looking at around those 60k mark, 50, 60k mark for last couple of weeks, and then this could have just been a bit of an outlier that we sort of got there. We did obviously see ADP sort of revised down a little bit lower, so I wouldn't be surprised if this gets revised lower as well. And then sort of maybe we do actually come in around that ballpark over here. But seems they're trying to do a little bit what the Aussie does. The Aussie just spams 20k. These guys will just spam 50, 60k. Just down the middle. Safe bet. It's not really anything you can take away from it. All right, that's it from me.